Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Saturn Return Diaries podcast. My name is Court. If you're new here, we talk about astrology and all things Saturn in the sky and astrology and all the stuff. So today we're talking to someone who I'm really excited to chat with, and the tables are turned, which I'm even more excited about, but nervous about. And yeah, I'm really just super excited for you guys to hear this chat and also her perspective, because I know a little tiny bit about what was going on during her Saturn return. So I'm excited to dive in more. But yes, the one and only medium in the middle,
Blah,
Steph.
blah, blah. I feel like whenever we're together, we blah, blah, blah.
It's like, yeah.
It's like something happens. I'm always like, blah, blah, blah.
I wish I had one of those like noise machines that's like, like an arrow.
Yeah.
It would be so good. Oh man.
Hi.
Hi, who are you?
I'm Steph. The internet may know me as the medium in the middle.
The internet does know you as
Yeah.
that. And what do you do as the medium in the middle?
Oh, fancy you should ask that question. I have a podcast called The Medium in the Middle. So yes, the tables are turned. I'm sitting here like, ooh. I have a podcast. I teach Reiki. I do Reiki. I read the Akashic Records. I'm a psychic practitioner. I'm a developing psychic medium. I'm a chip addict. I like to wear robes.
Yeah, you also are an up and coming, I want to say, like, I don't know if it's food blogger is not the
Yeah.
right word, but like a
Vegan
food,
cheese connoisseur.
yeah, like you're almost like doing trying out food and rating and reviewing it, which I
Yeah.
actually really appreciate.
I waste my money on gluten-free, dairy-free stuff, so you don't have to. That's gonna be my hashtag.
That's a brand new brand.
A
Just
brand new
work that
brand.
up. I love it.
That's all we need is more brands between the two of
Yeah,
us.
I can't keep up. It's too much. So good. Okay, well, yeah, that is like some of the stuff that Steph does.
Yeah,
So
I know. I forget half the things normally. Usually I forget to say I'm a podcaster or
yeah,
something, but I think I got it all.
yeah.
I'll read
It's
my business card and see if I said everything. Yeah.
okay. She's checked them off. Okay, so those are the things that you do. One of the things that I'm like very kind of curious, I guess, is like how do people describe themselves regardless of the work that they do?
It's a hard question.
I know it is.
Okay, how would I describe myself? I'm like, I always say I'm funny, like, but I think I'm funny, so
Yeah.
I'll always laugh at my own jokes. I'm wildly independent. It's annoying. Like I annoy myself how independent I am. I don't know, I'm funny. I'm a CrossFitter. I like chips. I like working. I like business. I love Reiki. Obviously, I love what I do. Um, it's funny for like podcasting and how much I talk about what I do in my real life. I don't like talking about what I do. Like I swear my best friend probably has no idea what I do because I never say anything. Um yeah, I would say that's it. I'm funny and I eat chips.
It's like that you nailed it on the head. All of
Yeah.
those things. You're funny, you eat chips, you converse with the dead sometimes.
Yeah, I just
Also,
hang out with the dead people.
you're into spiritual stuff. You know what?
And the phone, right? Is that your home phone?
It is like the outside thing here. We're just gonna ignore it and just
Every in all your pictures, all I comment is that your home phone?
I literally didn't order anything, and they sometimes just do this to basically try and get someone to pick up a package. So we're gonna
I
just
think it was Spirit saying hello.
oh, you tell me. Yeah,
This is
probably.
now a mediumship podcast.
Yeah, right.
Dun,
Switch.
dun, dun.
So anyway, now we're gonna kind of like segue, I guess, into a little bit of profiling yourself in regards to astrology. So Steph is learning her astrology. She's doing a
Yes.
really good job, and I'm really impressed. But what is your sun, moon, and rising?
Okay, I know this. I am a Libra double Capricorn.
Yes. So Libra sun, Capricorn moon, Capricorn rising.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which out of all of that, like from what you know right now, what do you resonate most with?
Um, Ooh, that's a good question. I feel like I like Libra. I am like the balancer. I am the person that will like keep everything cool and running. And then Capricorn, I do like, I don't know, we were talking about this the other day. Strictly follow the rules and it makes me crazy.
Yeah.
But like I'll just stand there at a red light and I won't cross the road until it tells me the little Walkman, even if it's at 1 a.m. and there's no cars in all of Banff. But I don't know. I feel like I'm a good balance. I'm still learning about the Capricorn. Like I know to now read like both horoscopes and
Mm.
that usually gives me a good balance. So it's really interesting. I just started learning this stuff like pretty much when I went met you.
Yeah, you've been diving in more. And I love that you said that you're like the balance because that is Libra, super, super on point. But the Capricorn is like very you in a sense of
Is it?
yes. Like it's funny because as you were saying about like the rules and stuff, I saw your post. Everyone just like needs to follow you on Instagram first of all. But I saw your stories and I was like, "Oh my gosh, it's so interesting." So I went and asked on my Instagram like how many people are rule followers and how many people are rule breakers because I am definitely a rule breaker as the Aquarius Scorpio mix that I am. I'm like, just no, I don't like the rules. But Capricorn is very much like here's a structure, here's a system, and this is the way that it goes. They're ruled by the government. Like it's like,
Yeah.
they work well when they have a system set in place, which is oftentimes a set of rules, right? So I like that. But also they're very driven. And like how you said, I'm very like, um, what was the word term you used? Like very independent,
Yeah,
annoyingly?
wildly independent and it drives me insane.
Yeah,
To the
wild.
point like I've moved house before by myself because I refuse to ask anyone for help.
Doesn't
I just
even
refused.
doesn't even get like a mover, just does
Literally, I didn't ask one friend, didn't anything, and I was just like, I can do this alone.
yeah. That's like Capricorn rising. I love
Yeah, the next like 8 times I moved, I was like, you know what? Maybe I could ask someone a favor. Maybe.
it. They would love to help you. Yeah, I feel like that is very on point with everything that you just said. But it's also important that we're learning all about this Capricorn because you have Capricorn rising and your Capricorn moon. But what we're talking about today is your Saturn sign. And just so all of you guys know, if you have not listened to the other episodes, then
Go listen.
you're going to need to because you need to know what Saturn is. So those are on the podcast audio format. But just a quick rundown: Saturn is structure, Saturn is rules, Saturn is a system that's put in place, but it's also our greatest teacher in our lifetime. So when we go through our Saturn return, basically we're being pushed, I call it, into a portal of learning all these lessons in order to gear us onto a direction that maybe we wouldn't have chosen for ourselves, but it's like our soul's path. And so Steph, do you know what sign your Saturn is in?
Like dead people. I was like, wow, I understand now. No, that was a really bad joke. I'm gonna guess Capricorn just because I want everything to be Capricorn, so I'm easy
It
when
is.
someone asks me what my sun, moon, rising is.
Yeah, and it is in Capricorn.
Yes.
Right. Yeah. So your sign is in Capricorn. I'm just looking at your chart right now. And you have Capricorn at 7 degrees in the 12th house. It's also conjunct Neptune and Uranus. I'll kind of do a briefing of what that means in a minute.
Okay.
But it also opposes your Chiron. And I wanted to bring this up because I was just looking at this before, but Chiron is about healing. You also have Chiron in Cancer, which kind of, the more that I dig into this, reminds me a lot about like feminine wounds, but because it's in Cancer, it can also be related to healing of like the feminine lineage, also like inner child stuff. I don't know. I think it has a lot to do more with service, but I could ramble about that. Anyway, so your Capricorn, Saturn is in Capricorn at 7 degrees, conjunct Neptune and Uranus in the 12th house. So just to give people some context, basically the way that I kind of read that right now is that when you have Saturn in the 12th, this is like big spiritual energy. Saturn is a structure, 12th house has to do with like all the hidden stuff that's at almost like the end of life. And I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean that in a way of like 12th house being the ending of the zodiac wheel. So it's literally like ascension, all the things that we would think about if we were coming to the end of something. So it's spirituality, subconscious, belief systems, um, dream states, anything that's like mystical can kind of reside there. People who have a lot of energy in the 12th house too can be more like spiritual teachers, educators in those kinds of themes of life. And so with Saturn and Capricorn there, it's saying, okay, you need to create a system or a structure that allows you to be that for your own soul's evolution. But there's a lot of lessons that come in order to get you into that realm. The conjunction between Neptune and Uranus is really interesting. All millennials have Uranus and Neptune in Capricorn, but having them in the 12th house really just like amplifies this energy for you of being able to have like 12th house is like psychic, Uranus is like feeling through the body, Neptune is like big vision, ideas connecting to other realms, Capricorn through the body, it's grounded. So you literally, now knowing where you're at, we're going to see how all of what you've been through kind of relates to that. But I guess I'll just jump in and see, like, how does that feel? First of all, just hearing that.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense now, and it's funny because I didn't know what a Saturn return was until I was past my. I remember you were like, "Today your Saturn return ends," and I was like, "Oh," and I don't even think I knew what it was yet. So it's interesting, like hearing that now. Like, yeah, it makes perfect sense for what I do with all those things I rattled off at the beginning of this episode. Like, I literally teach spirituality. Like, I teach Reiki. I am a medium. I speak with dead people. I am also a developing psychic medium, and
Yeah.
it's just like very interesting that this is like where I was meant to plop. And then, yeah, the lessons, so many lessons.
And the belief work, like you're literally
Yeah.
doing Psych K, which from my understanding has a lot to do with belief stuff. But
Yes. It's all about your beliefs and limiting beliefs in your
yeah,
subconscious mind.
did you okay, I just want to ask this first, but when you were going through your Saturn return, so just quickly, we're going to back it up further, but like during those prime ages of like 28 to 30, we'll say, was there a lot of belief work that you had to do?
Yes. But
Mhm.
it was more personal. It
Mm.
was more like beliefs about myself, what was possible for me, what I can do. I feel like there was a lot of that, and because it was right when I started Reiki, it was right when I realized I could speak to spirit, I was like, is this me? Do I do this? Do I believe this? What do I think of this? I always liked the TV shows. So
Mhm.
I think it was a lot of like self-reflection and checking in and being like who am I? What do I believe? What am I presenting as? What do I want my life to be like? It's like now that I know about Saturn returns, it's funny. I'm just like calling them out everywhere. Like I called my brother the other day and we were talking and I was like, just so you know, you're in your Saturn return. I was like, this completely makes sense for you. And he like looked it up and he sent me a text message, like the most bro text message. He's like, this really checks out. And I was like, yeah, man. So if you need him to come on your podcast,
Oh my god. So his Saturn's in Aquarius. He's probably going through the same as me.
yeah, I don't know, but
Okay.
he's 29. So I was like,
Yeah.
you're in your return.
Yeah, that's so funny. Yeah, he can come on. We can have a little sit down sesh.
But it's funny, like now knowing all these things, like it makes sense looking back. And I think, yeah, knowledge is always power for sure.
Mhm. Yeah, and I think, like, when you're going through that kind of stuff bless you. Yeah. You're good. When we're going through that kind of stuff, it's like again, like, hindsight is 2020, like, you don't know. That's why I wanted to do this podcast because I'm going through it and I'm like, why this is such a big thing for people in their life. And it's such a big transition for a lot of people anyway. Like when we think about when we're 30 and when we're shifting and transitioning into like basically a new time in our life, things happen, marriages, breakups, babies, like jobs, businesses. And I think now as the world is changing and people are kind of, taking away like those normalities, I guess, it's interesting to hear people's stories on what that change is for them. So that kind of leads me into this. I want to dial it back a little bit to know what was happening around like 26, 27. And the reason I ask is because this is the prequel setup to the Saturn return phase.
Ah, okay. Interesting. So 26, 27, I feel like my life was crumbling around me and I like was trying to like reinvent, trying to reinvent, trying to reinvent and I was like trying to find my thing and it was like nothing was working. Like I remember like I quit the job that I was working at and then I went and worked for Lululemon because I was like I just want to sell black stretchy pants. And
Yeah.
then I like quit that job and I like went to Costa Rica for a month because I'm like I need to figure out my life. And then when I came back I like I was gonna be a counselor and then I was gonna be a realtor and then I was gonna like do all these things and like nothing was fitting and I was just like, what am I supposed to be doing? Like, what am I supposed to be? Like, I was kind of on this path of self-discovery. And then when it like clicked in my mind that I was meant to move back to Banff, it was like the world opened, my life opened. Everything started to align, everything started to make sense where I was supposed to be, what I was meant to be doing, who I was meant to meet. It was just like bam, bam, bam. But yeah, it's interesting that like 26, 27, there was just like, I was like, I couldn't hold on to anything. I was like, what am I doing? Who am I being? What do I want to be? What do I want to become? And I like, nothing was like fitting. Like everything was just like, like this isn't right.
Yeah, I think you actually did a podcast episode yourself. I obviously don't remember what one it is. Maybe we can talk about it after and I'll put it below. But I think it's the one where you talk about when you were moving back to Banff. And when I listened to you talk about it, I was like, this is like such a Saturn return story, like
Yeah,
the whole thing. So,
that like straight up is my Saturn return story. I don't know the number either, but I think the episode was called Why Banff.
okay.
So I'll get the number for you. But yeah, it was literally like in hindsight, I was like, oh my gosh, now that I know this, yes, this all makes sense. But like when you're going through it, and like even when I went to Costa Rica for a month and I did a yoga teacher training, I like just wanted to like be alone and I wanted to travel alone and I wanted to face all these fears.
Mhm.
And it was still like I went there and yeah, I like discovered some pieces and it was just like the starting point of it all. But it's just interesting. Like at the time, you're not sure what's going on and you're not sure why you're doing things. And
Mhm.
yeah, so that's why when like you said you were starting this podcast, I was like, yes,
Yeah.
like we need to be having these conversations. We can learn from other people. Like even me just being like, yo, bro, you're in your Saturn return. And he like can Google it and be like, whoa, it's like, yeah, we need to know that.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that so much. I think too, like for you at that time, so just for context, like I did a podcast about this, but I'm still learning it myself. There's a progress moon phase which happens right before our Saturn return, which is what kicks off kind of the Saturn return, and it does feel like crumbling. So the way that you kind of describe that is really on point. And basically what it means is your progressed moon is the same as your own personal moon, which would be in Capricorn. So that independence of like wanting to be alone, wanting to like, find what is right for you and kind of like I guess reassess on goals would be a big thing too during that time with
Yeah.
Capricorn energy. So what happened so okay, you're in Costa Rica, you come back. What's going on then?
So right before I went to Costa Rica, I took Reiki level 1 and didn't know what Reiki was. Like I just went to this course cuz I like the word.
Mhm.
And then I went to Costa Rica for a month cuz I wanted to like be alone, travel alone. I took a yoga course. And when I came back, I'd quit my job before because Lululemon taught me that if you want to grow and you have to and expand, you have to be outside of your comfort zone. So I was like, I'm comfortable here. If I want to grow and expand, I need to get uncomfortable. of like doing all these things to like make myself uncomfortable. And when I came back, I started like looking for jobs again, thinking like I can get a job anywhere. Like I have a pretty good resume. And like literally Walmart wouldn't even hire me. Walmart. I
Mm.
couldn't get a call back from Walmart. Like the universe was just like
No way.
showing me like 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 just pushing me in the right directions. I was like, "Are you kidding me?"
Mm.
Um so it was like so interesting, and then I was doing all this work, and right like a month after I came back from Costa Rica was the first time I came back to Banff. So I lived in Banff for 4 years. Then I moved back to like close to where I was from for 3.5 years, and we never visited Banff once during that time because I knew I just couldn't. So it had been 3 years since I'd visited Banff. And that July, still remember, I came back for a friend's wedding. Like their wedding anniversary is like, I feel like it's my like rebirth anniversary. Like I always am like, happy anniversary to you. And like, you're the reason why I'm here again. So I came for their wedding, and it was in July, and the plane didn't even touch down in Calgary. And it was like, I've never smiled before. I had never had the joy before. And I was like, I'm moving back. I was like, I have to move back. So, anyways, I was convinced I was moving back to Banff, stayed for a week, went back home.
Mhm.
And now that I understood that I needed to be in Banff, I was like, I literally remember looking up in the sky, and I was like, okay, universe, I need a job because I need money to go back to Banff. And I've just been like hopping around everywhere vacationing for months.
Yeah.
You need to give me a job, and I like a cool job, and I'll just a few months I need to work, and then I'm moving back to Banff. And like within a week I had a job back at like the same mall that Lululemon was in, and all the girls at Lululemon were like, why didn't you come back here? And I was like, because I'm leaving in 2 months, and I didn't want to come back and then leave again for you guys because it would be right before holiday and whatever.
Mhm.
So I got this job, and it was crazy because then right before I left that job, so like I remember I was like supposed to be quitting tomorrow, say.
Mhm.
And like today my boss sat me down and she like offered me my own store. So I was working for Sage.
Mhm.
It's like a little oil company. I love them. They're
The
Canadian.
best.
And I remember like she would like randomly give me raises, and like I was like, she was like, you're so good. And I was like, yeah, I've done retail before. Like this is easy.
Mhm.
And right the day before I was gonna quit, she's like, hey, so there's a new store opening, and it was like closer to where I was living. It was like running my own store, and like what I would like, I really did enjoy the job. And
Yeah.
I was like, haha, universe, you're testing me to see if
Yep.
I still want to go. And I was engaged. And I remember like going home at the time and like telling my partner this, and he was like, so you're staying? And I was like, no, this is a test from the universe. And I was like, they're giving me an option that, yeah, could like keep me here, like I'm like, yeah, I would stay for my own store, whatever. But I was like, but no, I'm being tested. And then yeah, the whole like then I ended up coming back to Banff, and then I ended up ending my engagement, and then I started a business here, and it was just like everything opened up like literally bam bam bam. But it
Mhm.
was so many tests and then like retest. Like, are you sure you want this? That's why I always tell people like the universe will double check. You can say you want something, and then they're going to hand you something that's like, "Well, are you sure? Because you could stay here for this job." And you know,
Mhm.
so that was all right at the beginning of my Saturn return.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, there's so much goodness in here. I want to kind of like break it down a little bit. So, first off, I want to say I love that you brought up the tests, especially because you have Saturn in the 12th. One of the things I didn't mention at the beginning is that the 12th house is all about sort of not in a fluffy way, but like in faith way. So it's almost like the
Yes.
universe being like, I literally be like, okay, are you going to trust me or not? I am showing you. Obviously, you have to take action. Saturn is like relentless, right? He's like, you got to keep doing this. But it also means that with being in the 12th house, it's almost this like energy of like, I don't really know what I'm doing, but I know I'm being guided and I have
Yeah.
trust. And it's,
Well,
yeah.
sorry. It's funny that you say that because when I came back to Banff in the July, I was like walking around town being like, give me a reason to come back. Give me a reason to come back. Someone give me a reason to come back.
Mhm.
And in like September-ish, I got a text message from like this old guy I used to work with, who now was a boss at this old place I used to work at. And he literally just texted me. hey, I have an AGM role. It's a maternity leave. Do you want it? And I was like, yeah, when does it start? And he was like, November 1st. And I was like, okay, cool. And then like we didn't talk about it. And then he said like, yeah, okay, the job's yours. And like no interview, no nothing. And then I remember like trying to get a hold of him for a week and he was just like kind of like annoyed with me. I was like, can we have a phone call or something? Like, am I just moving across the country for one text message? And I remember it was a 3.5 minute phone call, 3 minutes and 34 seconds. And I remember I was leaving work and I called him and I was like, hey, so like you have this job for me? And he was like, yeah. And I was like, okay, and it starts November 1st. And he was like, yeah, like kind of annoyed. Like, he's like, I said this already. And I was like, okay. And like, and I'll have shifts. And then he was like, yeah. And I was like, can I have something on like paper or something? Like, I'm just going to leave my whole life and come. And he was just like, yeah. And I was like, okay, bye. And like, that was it. Like, I picked up and left my whole life over like these two text
Um,
messages and this 3 minute conversation. But I was like, yes, I was like, I trust this guy. I trust this job. I found somewhere to live. And I was like, I just got to go. So it's funny that it was like, yeah, I did have to trust because it was so funny. It was like a two text, who gets an AGM role over two text messages?
yeah. That's so wild. Also, it's kind of cool that you also teach that now because
Yeah.
even though like you had your Saturn return already, like your Saturn is in that place in your chart. So again, I say this is like Saturn school, right? Like Saturn is our biggest teacher. So in your life, it's teaching you how to trust as well. So now you're like past the Saturn return and you're like, okay, now I'm going to teach other people how to trust.
It's funny. I trust nothing but the universe.
That needs to be on merch.
Yeah, literally, I trust. That's a good merch. I should write that down. I trust nothing but the universe. I'm always like, yeah, they just know I'm in good hands.
That's literally it. Like that's literally the 12th house. If anyone listening has anything in the 12th house or you're having a 12th house transit, such that is literally it. I also have Saturn in my 12th house and it's moving over there for the next 2 years. So, yeah, big and digging into this. This also actually want to ask you a question. I want to know how are you actually I'm curious how you were physically feeling and like emotionally during that time. This is super selfish, but like I'm very curious because the 12th house does tend to kind of, because it's right before the first house, it kind of like depletes everything. So it kind of gets rid of everything. So when you get to the first house, it's like a rebirth.
Ah, so definitely in those like like the 26th, 27th, I was probably like, sorry, when I was 26 and 27, I was probably in that definitely like defleated. I can't say
Wait,
that word you
deflated
just
and
said.
deflated?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that. But I would say like by the time I got to the start of my Saturn return, because I didn't have a job, oh no, wait, I was teaching CrossFit. I was just like CrossFitting 6 times a week and like meal prepping all my meals. So I was in like the best shape of my life.
Mm.
I didn't feel the best like mentally, but like looking back at photos, I was like, wow, I was fit. And I was like, oh, I didn't have a job and I worked out 6 days a week, like twice a day. So physically I was doing good, but like, yeah, mentally not okay. Not okay.
Okay. Yeah, that's super interesting. I think that that's something that's pretty common. Um, Health and from what I've read, at least, and from some of the stuff that I've been looking up, is that 12th house can also be like almost like an addiction to something. To,
CrossFit.
yeah, yours was working out, right? It was
Yeah,
like,
and like food. I was like measuring everything I put in my body. I was obsessed with like macros. Like I was just like, yeah, I was obsessed with it. And I'd all the time in the world to like measure my eggs and measure 30 grams of cheese. RIP when I used to be able to eat cheese and like, my like 4 olives. And I remember I got 6 little cubes of nobody cares about this, but like I was obsessed.
no, I love it. I think it's so like, okay, actually though, like addiction, like certain addictions can show up in different ways. 12th house is an addiction house because it's ruled by Pisces. So obviously yours was like food, CrossFit and stuff. Personally for me, it's work 100%.
Ah.
And that, mhm.
I was just thinking, I was trying to think now, like I think I'm getting my timetables mixed up because like earlier there's definitely like an addiction to work, but then I like quit everything and I was like, I need to figure out who I
You
am.
also are a double Capricorn, so it's meant to be that you're loving work.
Yeah.
So,
Now I love work.
yeah,
I
yeah,
always have loved work, but
yeah.
like,
Yeah, work
Sorry.
ethic is
Yeah.
there. Okay, so let's kind of like go, I guess, dive into this a little bit more. So, where should we go back into? I feel like the piece where you had just moved to Banff, which was probably how old were you then?
You would have just turned 29.
Mm.
Like
So that's
literally 3 weeks before I left Banff, I turned 29.
okay. So that 29 is peak. It's like if this is the way that I kind of see it, it's like we're going up, climbing the mountain of Saturn. Like this is people who can see this, this is the Saturn mountain. I should do a drawing of this. And so like 26, 27, you're just like literally, and it's like that actually. You're just like just climbing straight, but then you get to the top and it kind of levels out a little bit. There's still steps, but you kind of have a little, it's not as foggy when you get there.
Yeah, yeah, that makes sense. Like you saying that definitely makes sense. So 28, I was when I was like, I gotta change something, rock things up, change things up. Then I decided to move to Banff, move back to Banff. And then it was like November, I moved back to Banff. By December, it was like broken up with the fiance. And then it was like rediscovering like not like who I was alone, but you have a plan in life and then it changes. So you're like, okay, I don't have a fiance. I'm across the world or across the country by myself. New job, new role. I was now AGM of this restaurant, new friends, a lot of familiar friends. I was like back in a familiar place. Like Banff is so homey for me. I
Mhm.
know a lot of people and it's just like a nice place to be.
Yeah.
But it was also very new and very fresh and like so many things and I like remember so many milestones. So then for that year, I feel like it was amazing and rocky and all of these things and then like with the end of the engagement it was like a year long, like I call it my divorce because it was literally a divorce and it was like a year of paperwork and lawyers and just like shit. And
Mm,
I remember like a year later, December 16th or was it 17th, I forget, it was my divorce day. It was like the papers were finalized, everything was done and it not that like again, it was just like everything was perfect. Like everything started to line up, like jobs started to line up. My
mm,
Reiki started to build, the podcast, like so many things were like starting and evolving and growing. And it was just like, yeah, then it was on the up and up and everything started to fall into place. And I was like, aha, like I get
mm,
it now. So it's interesting, like as the years go, like when people are like, oh, this is when your Saturn return. And apart from all of like that, this was also my entire spiritual awakening, you could say, because
mhm,
28, right before I went to Costa Rica, was when I took my first Reiki course. Then I took my second Reiki course. That's when I realized I could talk to spirit. So also when I'm figuring out I'm moving to Banff, I'm also figuring out like, am I a medium? What does this mean? Trying to find circles, trying to read books, trying to watch everything on YouTube, trying to watch every show, trying to like categorize myself. And then when I moved to Banff, I was trying to find like-minded people. Everyone's like, what's new? And I was like, I can talk to the dead. And they were like, so the weather. And I was like, no, but like, is this normal? Can you do that? And anybody like, and you know, you have this like, am I the only person that can talk to dead people? Can anyone else do this? Like, there must be something. And I couldn't find anyone else that like
mm,
did it like I did and I didn't understand why I was so challenging. But then you like find your group of people, you find your groove and you're like, "Oh, I'm not the only person that talks to dead people." Oh,
mm,
like the spiritual awakening, like I other people have done this before. So it was like all of this also happening while my entire life structure was changing. It was like who I am was changing, what I not necessarily what I believed in because I always did believe in mediumship. Um and just like I've always had kind of weird ghost stories. Like I could tell you ghost stories forever.
I
Even
love
before I was a
that.
medium. Yeah, now I have like a million, but like before I was a million medium, I had a
Yeah.
lot too.
Yeah, yeah.
And I just like remember watching Teresa Caputo, and I say this all the time. And I always thought like, there's no way this can be fake. There's just no way. Like, if there was this many good actors, if this many people could cry on cue, like the Angelina Jolies and the Brad Pitts, like they wouldn't have jobs. So I'm like, I don't believe that there's this many good actors who could be crying and faking these emotions. So this has to be legit. Like in my mind, that's how I justified it to myself. So then when it started happening to me, I had to justify it to myself too, where I'm like, well, I know I'm not lying and I know I'm not crazy. And then another line I always say, I Googled like, am I crazy? And apparently crazy people don't think they're crazy. So if you think you're crazy, you're not crazy. So like that line literally got me through like the first year of Banff. I'm like, crazy people don't think they're crazy. And I
Yeah.
don't think I'm crazy, so I'm not crazy. And then
Literally, yeah, that's a good I too have Googled that myself.
yeah, it's so reassuring. I like did this live talk last year
Yeah.
and everybody like laughed at that. And I was like, no, but you don't understand how reassuring that sentence was. Crazy people don't think they're
Mhm.
crazy. So if you think you're crazy, you're not crazy. And
Yeah.
I just like, I was like, okay, I live by this now.
Yeah. I mean, you kind of need something that is a lot to go through. You're right. Like your whole life system or structure changed. Spiritual awakenings. I'm sure if people listen to this podcast, they probably know what that is and have
Yeah.
experienced some form of it. And it's a lot.
Yeah, and like I was always like Reiki really opened it up to me, but like I started buying crystals, I started having incense, like all that stuff. I started clearing things.
Mhm.
But like as you get deeper and deeper into it, it's so much more. And I was just like, whoa, energy and learning boundaries and just like you're being pulled through the mud. Now I'm on the other end and I was like, everyone do this. And like this is how it works. But you didn't know that,
The
4 years ago or whatever.
Okay, the mud is such a good analogy. I'm like
Dragged.
literally dragged. Like I that's
You
such a
stuck a
big
little because it hardens.
oh my gosh. Yeah, and it feels heavy. It's like no matter what, and again, this isn't to scare people, okay? Because I do get a lot of DMs and people are like, "Oh my God, Court, like what do you think's gonna happen during my Saturn return?" And that's why we're doing this, because I think
Yeah.
we want to learn from people and know that like that heaviness and like that being dragged through the mud is also like it sounds super cliche, but it makes you so freaking resilient and
Yeah.
strong. Like and somehow like I literally some days I'm like, here I am." I am here still. So
Made it.
like, okay, what's today got in store, Like, it's
Yeah,
like
bring it on.
so I think that that's totally relevant and I like the way that you said that. And yeah, that's so much. It's so much to unpack. So I guess what I want to ask now is I guess like how did all of that help you or like how did that like change your direction of like what you're doing now?
Ooh. Um, so kind of like I said, I was very confused about what I wanted to do. Like I had worked in hotels for a long time. I was like, I don't want to work in hotels. I was working in weddings. I was like, I don't love weddings. And I was like, do I want to be a realtor? Do I want to be a counselor? Do I want to be whatever? And then I really liked Reiki and I just like kept going with Reiki. And then I was realized I could talk to spirit. So then I was telling these stories all the time. And I was like, I'm tired of telling these stories all the time. How can I record them so people can just listen to them? Oh, a podcast.
Mm,
Okay, I'll make a podcast. And it was literally just like piece by piece. My entire life as I know it today started to come together.
mm,
And then it was just like the pandemic hit and I was like, oh, I need to start an online business. Or like, oh, I'll take this Akashic record course. I have nothing else to do. Oh yeah. Like I met this person who told me I should do Psych K. Okay. Like it literally lined up for everything I do now. Like not that I completely reinvented myself, but like if you were to ask me even 5 years ago, if I thought I would be having a full-time online business, working for myself through a podcast, have a business in Banff, right on Banff Avenue, like I would probably laugh in your face. And it's just like I didn't think that I would be in like the healing work. Like I always said I wanted to be a teacher, but I'm always like, I don't like kids. Sorry, kids. But it's interesting now. I do get to teach people Reiki and like I'm dealing with adults and I'm dealing with people who are going through this. And I'm like, I can help you. I've been through this. I have advice for this. So it's interesting that it literally lined up for everything I'm doing now, where I am, who I am, what I'm doing for work, how I make money, where I live. Like everything was created through that mud. Like I used it to build
yeah.
my castle in Banff.
Ooh, that's so good. I love that. You used it to build your castle. And and Saturn is like karma, like rewards, when we think I always say Big Daddy Saturn, okay? I know you love that. And so like what he does is when you do the work, like when you actually think about it, right? Like let's say you're in school and you've got a big test and you've got to keep studying or you have a project, you have to do the work. That's what Saturn is saying to you. You have to do this and I'm not going to give up. And you can't give up because the more that you keep going through that, the other side of that is rewards. That's the
Yeah.
beautiful part of Saturn.
And I think that's why I have so many crazy stories. Like the first 10 episodes of the podcast were like, holy shit. I think it was because, yeah, you're like, you were being proved and proved and proved again, again, again. Like, you need to do this. You need to stay on this path. You need to figure this out. You need to be in this work. And like, I hate to call myself a healer, but like the healing work, like I have to be in this realm. I have to be with spirit and with people and dealing with this stuff. Like, it was just, they made it this crazy wild experience to be like, you got to be here, girl, like this is
Mhm.
where you at.
Yeah. I mean, clearly, like we're meant to, the best teachers are people who like go through something like
Oh
that
yeah.
experience. And then, you get to share that with people. And I think, wow, it's not a coincidence at all that you went through your Saturn return pre and during pandemic. And then it switched over to this new Saturn return people. And it's not ironic to me at all. It's not a coincidence. It makes so much sense that the shift in the world needing people are waking up, whatever it is that you want to call it, or
Yeah.
needing support in on their journeys. It makes so much sense that this is kind of where you've been led to.
Yeah, I know. And I like, it always interests me, like the consciousness, like the awareness of people. Like, we all kind of move through things at the same time. We all experience things at the same time, probably because the moon, always blaming her. But it's always interesting that like there is this like conscious awareness now. There's these questions, people are coming into it. And a lot of my clients and students are older, like they're in their 50s, 60s, 70s, and they're willing to learn and they're willing to do the work and they're willing to ask the questions now. And it's like, yes. And like, of course, we love it when like an 18-year-old is in course. I'm like, hell yeah, you're 18. Your life's going to be amazing. But it's like when someone's choosing this at like 72, and I'm just like, this makes me so
Yeah.
happy. Like the awareness is coming,
It's
consciousness is shifting. Like it's just,
yeah. Yeah.
it is.
Totally. I love that so much. Yeah, you have so much too that obviously that you can offer in regards to the things that you kind of already talked about that you have. So it's so cool. What advice would you have given to younger Steph while she was going through this? Let's say if she came to your course or whatever and you're like her teacher now.
Ask people for help when you're moving.
Oh,
Just kidding. That'd be my sassy. What would I tell her? I don't know. I feel like advice is so hard because it's easy to dish out and it's so hard to hear. So like there's so many things I feel like I would say, but I know myself and I wouldn't listen. So I'd be like, yeah, yeah, like
okay, what support would you give her? Even if like she
I
was
think I would be like cheesy stuff like just do it, like
mm,
act, don't think. Like move before you're ready, follow your gut, trust your intuition, like you're
mm,
not weird, you're not alone, like all kind of like those cheesy things. I think it's just more like reassurance and support
mhm,
because you're gonna move and do things that you want to do, but it's just like just go. Like
mhm,
even now when I'm seeing some people, um I don't know, like my friend is like in a relationship and I was like, okay, you need to move out. Like, I'll bring my car. We need somewhere to stay. You're staying. Like, I was like, I wish someone was there for me to do that, for me to be like, hey, you need out. I'm going to help you out. Like, but we don't know what we need. So now it's like easy to spot out. You're like, hey, you need this. Hey,
mm,
you need to learn your intuition. Hey, you need to learn whatever it is. You need to quit your job. You need to do this. You need to, and I feel like when like someone else can identify that for you, it's like, oh yeah, I do just need someone to bring their car with me so I can go get my stuff from their house and then I'm done. Like you just need someone to like call it out for you. So it's interesting that, yeah, support and like not being alone, but you still have to kind of know, you still have to do
you
the
gotta go.
work. Like even with advice, I feel like I know I'm stubborn, so I wouldn't listen. And
Mhm,
I'd be like, yeah, yeah. Like,
mhm,
so I find advice hard because I know I don't listen to
yeah.
advice.
Oh, same. I would be like, I'm gonna do this anyway.
Yeah,
So
and be like, "Oh, I'm gonna take 3.5 years. Leave me alone.
yeah, exactly.
Could have done this in 5 minutes, but no."
Yeah, right? I think that that's such a good point. We have to go through our own journeys, our own experiences. It's great to have people who we can look up to and all this stuff. And I think it's so interesting because everything that you're saying right now, that is exactly what you teach, like what you
Yeah,
do.
I know. And people ask me all the time, like, "What do you think I should do? What's your opinion on this?" And I'm like, "I don't know. What do you think? What is your opinion, or what does your intuition say?" Because of course we want someone else to tell us, and I will never ever tell you
Mm,
because no one could tell me. And if I do tell you what to do, you're doing what I think you should do, not what you think you should do. And like learning about your intuition, learning to listen is the hardest thing we'll ever do in our whole lives, probably.
mm,
And it's just like you you need to learn what your yes no is. You need to learn what your language is. I can talk about this for hours, but like that's so important that no matter what advice anyone gives you, if your instincts say no and everyone around you saying yes, you still have to say no.
yeah.
Like
Hmm.
period.
Totally. And
End of it.
yeah, you literally took big leaps from that
Yeah.
just based off knowing feelings, um, intuition, like that's what you did. And so it's
Yeah.
like, okay.
But like if anyone was like, "Steph, why did you move from $1 million house into a basement apartment? Where I rented a room. I moved from $1 million house to a 1 bedroom. Like I rented a room. So like I had a roommate
Yeah.
in a basement in Banff. And I was never happier in my whole life. Everyone's like, "What the hell are you doing?" And I was like, "I know. You don't have to know. I know." And
Mm,
it was always just like I was never happier. And I was living in a basement in a room. Not
yeah.
even a 1 bedroom apartment, in a room.
Mm,
From like 3,000 square foot home, custom built.
yeah.
I had a little window. I was like, this is amazing.
Wow. It's because your soul knew. You followed a
Yeah.
signal. That's that
But
no.
like everyone around me was like, what are you doing? And I was like, just you wait and see.
And so that leads us into where we're at now.
Yeah. The happy part of this story.
Yeah. So
We're
what like
covered in mud. We have a castle.
well, like actually speaking of castles though, so this is a great segue because you went
This
through
is a
all
great
this stuff.
segue.
You've built your business, you're
Yes.
living in Banff, and now what? Now Saturn's actually in Steph's first house now. So it's rebuilding, lots to do with the self and almost
Yes.
again like reaping those rewards. So what's happening now?
Yeah, like I opened my own business in Banff 6 months ago. I launched an in-person business or an online business a year ago. The podcast turns 2 soon. I just bought my own house in Banff condo. It's a tiny condo, but it's mine. Yeah, bought that. Get the keys in a month. It's amazing. It's incredible. I teach Reiki online. My courses sell out. I public speak around. I get to do events and wellness retreats, and I'm medium in the middle, dancing in the streets. It's like my life is a fairy tale. Like it's perfect. It's everything. Everyone's always like, "What do you wish for? Like, what do you like wish you could have?" And I was like, "I don't know." And the same thing as yesterday, every day. Like I love everything about my life. Everything. I don't even think I would change one thing except
Oh,
for my cankles. But I could deal with that.
okay. The Kangles. I
That's it.
love
The cankles.
that. It's all but the reason why is because you followed your soul. This is the
Yeah.
thing.
And I
Like,
feel like I have a lot of people tell me, "Thank God you listened so young." I think that's good advice because I have older people tell me, like, "You realized a lot quickly." I'm 31, about to be 32 in October. Um, and yeah, I did realize a lot young, and I didn't. I wasted time learning some lessons, but I could have wasted a lot more time learning some of these lessons. And I was like, got it. Let's go.
yeah.
So I think I'm lucky to be like this young, especially like in energy work, especially what I do. Like all my mentors are like, we have 20 years of experience, but you're going to have
Mhm,
so much more experience. You're going to be able to reach so many more people. And I always like say, I'm like, I'm young. I have energy. I'm ready to work. I'm ready to go. I was like, I don't need breaks. I don't need rest. Like, I haven't been doing this for 20 years yet. So I have a lot of energy where I can get a lot done right now.
mhm,
So that's also really good. But I always have older people, my older students are always like, you realize so much so young. And
mhm.
I just like My mentor once told me, she's like, Steph, you are going to learn lots of lessons in life. She's like, but just remember, you only have to learn them once. She's
Mm.
like, so pay attention. And I was like, yes. I was like, that's such a good piece of advice. Like, you only have to learn things once. So when things are coming up as a pattern, it's like, what are you not learning? Figure it out. And then let's move forward with it. So I'm like, yes, I do only have to learn things once. Thank you.
That's so empowering. That is really good advice. I love,
Yeah.
yeah, you only have to learn things once. Hmm.
Yeah. And then she said it in like a mischievous way. And I was like, oh, what am I not seeing? But now like there is certain things you like can call it out. You're like, not doing that again. Ooh, no, learn this.
Mm.
Um, so
Yeah.
it's interesting. And I have a podcast episode about that, like where I talk about like don't get into a car accident to learn the
Oh,
lesson.
yeah.
Like you don't have to get into the car accidents over and over and over again to learn the lesson. You got into a car accident once, you knew you shouldn't have been on the road. Next time you think you shouldn't be on the road, guess what? You're not gonna get in the damn car. You learned. You don't gotta get into another car accident. So like apply that to your life.
I love it. I love that so much. Yeah, I remember that episode too. It was a good one. Um, so much stuff. Like I feel like that is such a like obviously this is the thing. I feel like going through all of it, it's like you just experience what you experience is like put into this tiny chunk, like
Yeah.
40 minutes. It's like
Here you go.
thank you for
I mean, with the synopsis, you don't really need to know more. There it all is.
that's it. You did great. I love it so much. I was gonna say, like, was there a specific challenge during that time that was like the hardest point to get through, or I don't know, lesson to learn, or
Yeah, I would say like deciding to move to Banff
Mhm.
without my fiance,
Yeah.
that was like the that was the opening of the door. That was like the start of it all.
Mhm.
Like, and without that decision, nothing else would have happened. And that was the hardest decision. So like deciding to like leave that big house and security and all of the things and family, and then deciding to like end that relationship. That was the hardest decision and the best decision I've ever made in my whole entire life. But that was like the start, the kick of it all. That was like the door opening. Like that was my life beginning. Like I always like I joke about that rebirth in July, but
Yeah.
it's just like my life started again when
Mm.
I knew I was coming back. So like yes, a lot of things had to end and finish and die and it was hard and shit and blah blah blah, but I'd do it a million times over to have my life today.
Mm. I love that. You would do it a million times over to have the life that you have today. People remember that.
Yeah. It's worth it.
I'll just hold on to that. I'm like,
Yeah.
okay.
Oh. Yeah, and like in 2019 I was like, now I'm like, yeah, I get it. The universe got your back.
Yeah. First I was like, and then I was like, okay, this is a really good reel. I've been thinking of like, how do I make certain reels for Saturn Return? That would be a good one. It's like first I was
First I
like,
was like,
now I'm like,
then I was like,
oh my God, I love it so much. Cool. Okay. Well, those are yeah, that's kind of like the basics of what we're going to chat about, I guess, with the Saturn return
oh,
stuff. There's so much more I know that we could go into, but I think that was really great. And I
yeah,
just
that was fun.
you.
I
Yeah,
hope
thank
it helps someone. And I always say like the Akashic records say this a lot. Life it always makes sense in hindsight. 20 hindsight's 2020. It always makes sense when we're done running the race and we look back and we're like, oh, I should have done this. Oh, I could have done that. When
you.
you're running the race, you don't know all those things yet. So just get to the finish line. You'll know why when you get there. It'll all make sense when you're there and
Yeah.
you're looking back. You're like, oh, I had to fall,
Yeah.
and then I realized.
Or like
So
maybe I should have stopped for water at that water
yeah.
station.
Maybe I should have tied my shoe because 2 meters later I fell and broke my nose. Next time I know. Like
Yeah.
all of these things make sense.
That's such a good analogy for a Saturn return too. It is a marathon. It's like a long distance haul. But you have to go through it. You can't skip it. I always say to my mom, I'm like, I just want to be 33. And she's like, not how it works.
Yeah.
you know? So yeah, anyway, that's so great. So Well, you've just shared with people like what you do. So I guess quickly, like, do you want to say where people can find you? What you are? Are there announcements? Do you have
No.
any announcements? My favorite part of Steph's
Yeah.
podcast.
I love okay, I love announcements in school. You're sitting at your desk and they just come on and they tell you that it's hot dog day on Friday and that like you get to wear purple tomorrow for some reason and you're just like, hell yeah. Your day starts off with announcements. Anyway, so did my podcast. I
Yeah.
don't have any announcements. No. I have one Reiki training open in September. You can find me at Medium in the Middle, themediuminthemiddle.com. Just Medium in the Middle everywhere. That's it. That's all.
Medium in the middle, dancing in the streets, peeps.
Dancing in the streets. Yeah, there's gonna be so many offshoots from this
Yeah.
podcast.
I love it. And what was the merch line? Now I forget.
I trust no one but the universe or
That
something like
is
that.
such a good statement. Everybody,
Yeah.
you take, and I might even call this podcast episode. Literally, she learned to trust no one except the universe during her
Yeah.
Saturn
Which
return.
like is probably like some karma that I have to deal with or some trauma, I mean, that I have to deal with. Like maybe I should trust someone, but the universe got your back always.
Maybe that's round 2 when you have Saturn return.
Yeah, I'll learn how to trust someone.
Someone else.
Learn how to ask for help when you're moving house.
Yeah. Well, you're moving soon, so I hope now that
I've started like it's literally like been like the past 6 months of my life has been asking people for favors. I'm like this month I'm gonna ask one person to help me move. So I like have a little list. I'm like asked Amanda. She said yes.
Amanda, you're the real MVP.
Yeah, Brando said I could use his car. Cool. Like
You see, people are helping you.
yeah, but you just gotta ask them. It's weird.
Yeah.
It's a weird concept. Apparently, we're not all mind readers.
No. They're not. No. All right, cool. Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate this. This is so much
Thanks for having
fun.
me on. This was so fun. I know we could talk for hours, me and you.
Look at our matching mics. Except
Blue snowballs.
you have this like really cool space suit for it, and I don't have that yet.
It's for my P's and my B's.
I don't have that yet. Yeah. All right. Anyway, we'll wrap it up here. So if you're on YouTube, like, comment, subscribe, do all the things, hit that button, hit the bell. Oh, hit the bell. She got
Bell.
yeah.
I'm sure there's a bell.
All the things. Yeah. You'll be notified when I upload. If you do, hit the bell. If you're on the podcast right now, if you listen on Apple, you can give us a rating or review us, as in me and Steph on this one, but like us as in just me basically on the podcast.
5 stars, leave a review.
Yeah.
Tell your friends.
Tell them, share it, come say hey on Instagram at Saturn Return Diaries, and we will see you in the next one.
Bye.